Hey there, team. I just made a little video about a buried oil tank that we more or less stumbled across towards the end of an inspection. And the realtor asked me a very good question as I was going over the evidence of the buried tank, and then mentioning that it'd be good to check with the sellers and try to figure out if it had been decommissioned. The realtor asked me a great question, and he was just asking if the current seller has no idea, other ideas on how they might be able to track down some of that information, which is a great question. We've seen people have success with tracking that information down through, sometimes they can get a hold of the previous seller, the person who owned the property before them, and that's a really good way to sometimes get the information. Another way to figure out if a tank's been decommissioned is lots of times there will be a prominent company or two that kind of specialize in old oil tank, buried oil tank decommissionings, and they might have information on that property. Some of them might require the current property owner to check into that in order to disclose the information. But in our area, there's one company that does a large lion's share of the tank decommissionings, and we've had clients and agents or realtors have good success in sometimes tracking down if a tank's been decommissioned through that company. So yeah, in different markets, you just kind of want to figure out who those main companies are that decommission tanks, and they're a good person to have on the list for this situation. And then another time is a lot of municipalities, a lot of cities might require a permit to be pulled to have a tank decommissioned. So you might be able to check permits and see if a permit was ever pulled for a decommissioning. Those are the three main ways. So previous sellers, current sellers, that's one. Primary decommissioning companies in the area that do that kind of work, that's another way to get the information. And then possibly, I'd say last resort, maybe contacting the city or county, see if they might have any records of a tank being decommissioned. And just to circle back to what decommissioning is usually filling the tank with, pumping out the oil to clean the tank out with any old oil, and then filling it up with some concrete or concrete slurry, just to fill it so you don't have a metal tank with oil sitting in the ground rusting away. Yeah, and it's really good for a buyer to be aware of that kind of stuff. And it's a little caveat is it's not like covered, at least in Washington State where we're at. It's not a SOP, it's not a standard of practice thing that the state requires home inspectors to look for, but I'd say a good home inspector will kind of have it on the back of their radar when they're looking at an older home, just to let their clients know if they see evidence of a buried tank. But home inspectors aren't going to catch that 100% of the time, so something to be aware of. Thanks for tuning in.